Hello, friends. Today is Saturday. It's March 29th, 2025. Today is day 540 since October 7th of 2023. An update on what's been happening in Gaza the last 24 hours. Hamas has agreed to a new ceasefire proposal, saying now that it won't disarm while there's still an ongoing Israeli occupation. The acting chief of Hamas, Khalil al-Hayya, said today that the Palestinian militant group has agreed to a ceasefire proposal that it received 2 days ago from the mediators in Egypt and Qatar regarding the ceasefire negotiations. Israel has said that they have sent their counteroffer to the mediators. Al-Hayya also said that the group will only disarm if Israeli occupation ends and a Palestinian state is established. In Israel, reports indicate that the Prime Minister's office acknowledged the receipt of a ceasefire offer and that they have returned a counteroffer and that they are also in coordination with the United States. So ceasefire negotiations are continuing as Gaza continues to be cut off from food, humanitarian assistance, electricity, going on 3 weeks. Thousands have gathered across Israel to protest against Netanyahu's government for the release of hostages. And Egypt believes that despite the stalemate in direct talks and in direct negotiations between Israel and Hamas, that there is chance of progress with these recent conversations. Also, next week is Eid al-Fitr, which is the end of Ramadan for Muslims around the world. It also, of course, we're in the middle of Lent, and April will have celebrations for Christians around the world and Passover as well. So Egypt believes that in coming weeks, there's an opportunity for progress to happen soon in terms of ceasefire negotiations. But as Al Jazeera has reported, Israel has no plans to end the war immediately on the horizon. Prime Minister Netanyahu's office responded and said that they have put forward a counteroffer, that they specifically want 10 of the hostages to be released, in addition to the bodies of some of the captives who've been killed during the war, and that they are specifically not committed to ending the war. IDF spokesperson Adrei posted on X today that several areas in the south of the Gaza Strip that are heavily populated with Palestinians in Gaza, those populations must evacuate their homes. So the IDF spokesperson said, quote, terrorist organizations have once again begun to fire rockets from civilian areas, end quote, using that as a justification once again for the forced displacement of Palestinians. As we've talked about, many of these communities have been displaced 7, 8, 9, 10 times over the last 540 days. In the last 24 hours, 26 Palestinians were killed, 70 were wounded in the Gaza Strip. We know that since the ceasefire broke on March 18th, at least 921 people have been killed in Gaza, and more than 2,000 have been wounded. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are facing severe hunger and malnutrition as the blockade has continued now for more than 3 weeks, according to the United Nations. 9 Palestinian paramedics have been missing for more than a week in South Gaza. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society announced that today their fate is unknown. The Red Crescent Society said they were targeted by Israeli forces. And Hamas released a video of the hostage Elkanah Bobat today. This is the second video of him in a week. He's asked the question in the video. He said, you signed a deal. You got out female soldiers, the elderly, the young. You got everyone out. What about us? The daughter of Meni Godard, who was killed on October 7th, his body is still being held in Gaza. She revealed today that the Israeli army attempted to negotiate and retrieve her father's body from Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but despite recovering findings that belonged to him, his body is still being held in the Gaza Strip. Shin Bet and IDF made that announcement. The families of Guy, Gilboa, Dalal, and Evitar David, both of whom are still being held in Gaza, were notified that their loved ones have had their hands and feet tied, and they've had bags on their heads for days, according to reports by Israel's Channel 12 News. The report said that Gilboa Dalal has not spoken for a month because of extreme thirst and that he's lost his hearing in one of his ears. In the West Bank, Hamdan Bilal, he's the Palestinian co-director of the film that won the Best Documentary of the Year, Oscar-winning film, No Other Land. We've been talking about this week. He was beaten by settlers. He was detained. He was released from custody on Tuesday following his arrest by the Israeli army. He was detained after a group of settlers in the West Bank attacked him, according to activists and a neighbor who spoke to the Washington Post. And the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Scientists apologized following criticism for its failure to support his detention, the detention of the Palestinian Oscar winner, Hamdan Bilal. A 22-year-old Palestinian was killed in the West Bank by IDF gunfire. This was in the north of the West Bank in the last 24 hours. And in Lebanon, the Hezbollah chief, Naim Qassem, said today, if the Lebanese government does not stop Israeli aggression, we will have no choice but to resort to other options. He did not specify what those options were, but he said that Hezbollah is committed to a ceasefire agreement. He also spoke about the attacks that have been coming from South Lebanon into Israel, and again declared that those were not Hezbollah rockets. In Yemen, there were suspected U.S. airstrikes that pounded Yemen once again overnight into today. They killed at least one person. As the American military acknowledged earlier bombings, a major military site in the heart of Sana'a, controlled by Houthi rebels. The Houthi-run Saba news agency said that they identified the person who was killed was a civilian. Many analysts have been asking the question of whether or not U.S. bombing of Houthi targets in Yemen is making any difference. And according to the Washington Post, most analysts doubt that the airstrikes can entirely defeat the Houthis. There was a webinar that was hosted by the Middle East Institute this month, where Nadwa al-Daswari, who's an associate at a Washington-based think tank, suggested that the airstrikes will only slow down and not diminish the threat that is posed by the Houthis. Joseph Votel, who's a retired general, former commander of U.S. Central Command, said the same conversation the Houthis have learned a lot about protecting their assets and protecting their resources through years of conflict. And Gregory Johnson, who's an associate director of the Institute for Future Conflict at the U.S. Air Force Academy and also a scholar on Yemen, suggested on social media that the Trump administration's maximalist vision for neutering the Houthis is foolhardy. Washington Post analyst Ishan Tharoor describes the situation in Yemen this way. The suffering is acute. Much of the country's civilian infrastructure is already destroyed. Schools and hospitals lie in ruins. The collapse of the country's economy precipitated a currency crisis that means the basic necessities like food, water, healthcare are unaffordable to many Yemenis. 17 million people live in the country. Roughly half the population is food insecure. And according to the international advocacy group Oxfam, Yemenis deserve and have the right to live in safety, have access to food, water, healthcare, and to lead a path towards a peaceful future. That was Pauline Chakouti, Oxfam's international head of humanitarian advocacy and campaigns. The last decade has been devastating for Yemenis, and we only see these deadly consequences compounded by urgent action from authorities and the international community to allow the economy and the aid community to operate. Just a reminder for us this week at Churches for Middle East Peace, we'll be hosting Reverend Dr. Munther Isaac this week in Washington, D.C. For those of you who aren't here with us, we'd encourage you to join us. We'll be supporting the launch of his book called Christ in the Rubble, talking about all that's happened in Gaza these last 500 plus days. I'd invite you to join us online the evening of April 2nd. He'll be speaking at New York Avenue Presbyterian Church, and that'll be live streamed. So you can register for that event at our website at cmep.org to find out more information about how you can join us. So thank you for your ongoing prayers and support and solidarity. Don't give up hope as we continue in our efforts towards peace. In the name of Christ. Amen.